Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello and welcome, my fellow CEOs, to the Life You Crave podcast. So you might be wondering, Leah, why are you calling me a CEO? I'm not a CEO of anything. But girl, that is where you are wrong. I have been really thinking about this lately. I had the great benefit of spending the weekend with some amazing women, all of whom were CEOs in their own right. Some of them were legit CEOs, but others were just women who are badasses. And what I realized was that we're all CEOs to some degree, whether you are the CEO of your own business, the CEO of your classroom, the CEO of your household, the CEO of your family, of your team, whatever it is, women are running shit. Like, let's just be clear. We are running shit. We are all running something. Okay, maybe not every single one of us, but I have a hunch that if you're listening to this podcast, you are running something. And what I have noticed in myself and in other women is that we are running it, but we are not owning it. We are not claiming it. And therefore, we're running it constantly overwhelmed. We're running it with burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. On today's episode, I want to share with you my 3 steps for how you can really transform your CEO-dom into one in which you are actually owning it, running it, and loving it. So here's what happens, right? When we are running so much all at once, and I mean, this is well established in the literature. This isn't just me and you. This is all of us, especially if you are a ambitious, high-achieving working woman, and then doubly so if you have some kids at home. We are truly running so many things. We are managing so much: emotional management, mental management, physical management. There's so much managing going on in our day-to-day. And what happens is when we're running it overwhelmed, we feel terrible, right? We end up victimizing ourselves. We end up living in a place of victimhood. And if you are in a place of victimhood, if you hear yourself saying things like, I can't, this just doesn't happen for me, it's not possible, there's nothing I can do about it. All of those statements might sound really, really true in the moment. And I know I have been there. Trust me, I'm going to share a story with you later on this episode about how I have been there. And it might be true, but the fact that you're saying it means that you are feeling disempowered. You are feeling like a victim of your circumstance. And so it's just something to notice. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to stop. I'm definitely not telling you to stop saying I can't. But it's one of those things that I tell my clients to really start to elevate your awareness around. Because when you elevate your awareness around your language will tell you so much about how you are seeing yourself, how you are seeing the world. And if you are busy using statements like, I can't, or it's not possible, then you are seeing yourself as disempowered, powerless, victimized. And that feels awful. And what do we do, ladies? When we feel awful, we eat, right? We overeat, we overdrink, maybe we call that ex that we wish we had, let go of years ago. I mean, not me, of course. I'm a happily married woman, but I'm just saying, right? We end up engaging in destructive behaviors when we feel bad. Now, there's no shame in that either, because the reason we engage in destructive behaviors when we feel bad is because we're looking to feel better. And destructive behaviors always feel better in the moment. It's just that in the long run, they are destructive and therefore they're not doing us any good. So don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. But for right now, what I want you to do is just make a mental note of when you hear yourself using that kind of language of I can't, it's not possible, this is just the way that it is. Just make a note of it. And by the way, if you would like, I know for a lot of my ladies out there who listen to this podcast, you are listening to this podcast while you are driving, while you are walking your dog, while you are folding some laundry, and you don't have pen and paper to take notes. I got you. Just head over to leahpinelli.com/goodies. That's GOODIES. And you will get on my mailing list and I will be sending out the show notes to this episode to everyone on my email list. So they will get every single point that I make directly to their inbox. So you don't have to worry about taking notes because I know you're busy, girl. So what happens when we are running shit, overwhelmed, is we fall into a place of victimhood. It's a psychological position that we end up owning that position instead of owning our power. I'm going to get to power in a minute. The second position that we end up wallowing in for some of us, and for some of us, it can be a blend of all three of these. But the second one is martyrdom. And I know this one so well because I was the queen of the martyrs. And in fact, my husband might argue that I still can be from time to time. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else. But a martyr is the person who is constantly saying things like, look at everything I have done. I do this and this and this and this, and I got this and I got that and I got this. And sometimes we're doing it because we are trying to shame other people, i.e. our spouses potentially, or our children, trying to make them feel badly because they're not doing enough. But a lot of times we're also doing it as a badge of honor, right? We're bragging to our friends. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, right? And that maybe looks empowered, right? It looks like you're empowered. It looks like it because you are shaming and guilting other people for not doing as much. But really, shame and guilt, when you are doing it to somebody else, they don't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be a martyr because really when you're being a martyr, you are again victimizing yourself. You're saying, I am the victim of my own behaviors. I am the victim. I have to do all these things. I have to do this. I have to do that because if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it, yada, 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 all the things. That doesn't feel good either. That's number 2. So we've got victimhood, we've got martyrdom, and the last one is shame. When we are running the world, as Beyonce says, but we're doing it overwhelmed instead of empowered, we often will feel a lot of shame because we don't feel good. It doesn't feel good to do everything all the time. It doesn't. It's exhausting. Nobody wants to be exhausted. So we end up feeling shame because we feel like we should be doing all these things, right? I should be running my business. This is me personally. I should be running my business. I should be on the PTA. I should be volunteering in my kids' classroom. I should be calling my mother more often. I should be calling my sister more often. I should be like all these things, right? I should be having date nights. We should be going away for weekends. I should be. All of these shoulds create this pressure because then you look at your life and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing half of this stuff. I'm not doing most of this stuff. What am I doing? And so then what do? Say it with me, ladies, because you guys know by now, we eat. And I know that maybe it doesn't seem like a direct correlation there, but it is. Because when you feel shame that you're not doing enough, that you're not enough, this topic comes up all the time with my clients. This is such a big topic. That feeling of not doing enough, not being enough, not earning enough, not being a good enough mom, all of it. It creates a feeling of shame. And what do we do when we feel shame? We hide and we eat. We hide and we do what's called secret eating sometimes, or we end up just eating, maybe not even in secret, and then we feel shame about what we ate. So you see the connection. It is very clear that we often know that we're stressed. We'll talk about stress eating. We're stressed and we're overwhelmed, so we turn to food. But more importantly, what we're missing is that middle point, that point that actually says, I'm stressed and overwhelmed, but why am I stressed? I'm stressed because I feel like I'm not enough. I'm stressed because I feel like a victim. I mean, yes, I have too much to do, but I'm stressed because I have too much to do and I can't do it. I feel shame. I feel like a victim. I feel like a martyr. And it doesn't feel good. I have experienced this so many times in my life. And in particular, one time that really stands out, a time that I was really feeling the victimhood. I was living in Victimville, and I was being a martyr, and I had a lot of shame about it. It was when I was still an educator. I worked as an educator for 15 years. And I had a very small coaching practice on the side that just kind of grew organically at first and then intentionally. And I started to really see that I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship full time. I wanted to coach women full time, exactly what I do today. But if you're an entrepreneur, you know that there's this awkward little gap. Awkward is not even the right word. There is a terrifying gap, is a better word, between when you're still working your day job, quote unquote, your career, the career that I had prepared for, that I had gone to Stanford for, the career that I was well established in, the career that I was so good at, that was so secure, right? The paycheck comes every single month and the benefits are amazing. And, all of these things were so great. But I wanted to go out and do this really risky thing of working for myself, by myself, on my own. And I wasn't making as much money in my coaching practice at the time as I was at work. And so I was working 2 jobs for about 2 years. I would get up at 4:30 every single morning. Was it 2 years? Yeah, it was. It was 2 years. I would get up at 4:30 every single morning, and I would work from 4:30 until about 6:30. So I'd work for a couple of hours, and then I would go to work and be there by 7:30 a.m. Then I would work, and then I would come home, and I would work for a couple more hours after work into the evening, and then I would have family time, and then I would usually pass out. I couldn't work after family time. But I was working 2 jobs, and then I would work tons on the weekends, and I would still get up at 4:30 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday before my family so that I could get in a good 4 hours of work before they all got up. And at that time, I was always struggling. I was having the time of my life, by the way, but I was struggling because I was really trying to, make the leap into just having my business and no longer being an educator, but I felt like I couldn't afford it. But I didn't feel like I had the time to create the business that would actually pay my bills because I always had to go to work at my day job. So it was like this catch-22. And so I constantly would get coached on my thoughts about the fact that I can't make as much money as other women who maybe don't have to work a day job. I can't coach as many clients because I have a day job. I can't do X. I can't do Y. I can't. And on the one hand, some of those things were true. I can't quit my day job yet. That was true, maybe, sort of. But the thing is I could have quit my day job. I could have. It's just I did not want the consequence of quitting the day job, which meant not enough money in the bank to pay my bills right away, right? Taking this leap of faith that I would figure it out, which I did not do, by the way. I did wait until I had a full-time coaching practice before I left my job. But my point in sharing this is that it was the way that I was seeing it. It wasn't until I had a coach say to me, Leah, what if you viewed your day job as being the biggest investor in your business? And I thought, wow, that was such a total perspective shift for me. Because on the one hand, I was seeing my day job as holding me back from being able to do this work that I felt called to do. And when she framed it like that, because it's true, my day job was paying my bills so that I could coach women in the mornings and the evenings. I had 6 a.m. clients, you guys, right? Like I was doing it, but my day job was what allowed for me to do that. And that changed everything. I will never forget the next day going into work, and I had a totally different attitude at work. I mean, I was never obvious at work that I was, not totally happy at my job, but I wasn't. And when I went to work that next day, I felt like I was the luckiest woman on the planet because I had this great job that I truly loved. I loved being an educator. I loved it. It just wasn't my calling anymore. And I felt like, wow, I am so lucky that I get to still be an educator while my job as an educator is funding this business that is my biggest passion. So I share that story with you because I'm hoping that you can see how the reframe can make the biggest difference for you, for your experience, for your day-to-day life and experience. It's not that we do these reframes because we want to deceive ourselves or be deceptive or delusional, right? That's not the point. The point is that what's the point of me going to work every day being pissed off that I have to go to work at my day job every day when I really just wanted to be building my business? What's the point of that? I still have to go to my day job, so I have a choice. I can either go to my day job pissed off, or I can go to my day job super excited to be there, right? And building my business at the same time. Either way, I was still going to build my business, but wouldn't you rather build your business and feel really good rather than build your business and be angry? To me, it seems like a no-brainer. So here is how you really, truly can make that shift for yourself. I'm going to give you 3 points, 3 things that you can do to start to really own your busy, right? To own your CEO-dom, to own it. I want you to own it so that you can feel good too. The first thing that you want to do to take your power back, because that story that I just shared with you was an example of how I felt victimized by my circumstance. And then I took my power back and I felt enlivened, right? I felt energized by it. Here's how you can do it too. The first thing you need to do is you need to streamline your obligations. Now, when I say obligations, please keep in mind you are obligated to do nothing. You can do whatever the F you want anytime you want to. Usually, though, what we say is that we can't, which is not true. I'll share with you another quick story. A client of mine who was feeling very, very stressed, understandably so, because her nanny had called off at the last minute. She had a full day of work in front of her, and she had 2 kids, like under the age of 3, that she was home with. And she was so overwhelmed and so stressed out because she just wanted to be working. And her language, her position was very much this place of victimhood. Who wouldn't be, right? Feeling like you just got totally screwed by the universe and everybody else. But we went through an exercise together, and I said to her, look, you could put your 2 babies in the room next door to you with an iPad and a bunch of snacks and close the door all day. And of course, she looked at me like I was absolutely insane. And I said, now look, I'm sure that CPS would come knock on your door and take your children away from you after this neighbor's call because of the crying and screaming after a while. But the point is that you do have choices. And of course, most of us, the vast majority of us, anybody listening to this podcast would never make that choice. They're like, Leah, that's insane. But the purpose of the exercise is because when you recognize that you're actually making a choice to care for your children because you don't want them taken from you, because you love them, because you care for their well-being, it starts to expand how you feel. You stop feeling so claustrophobic with oppression, right? And you start feeling more expansive. You start to see more opportunities, more choices, and you start to feel more empowered. So what I mean when I say you have to streamline is I want you to look at your calendar, and I want you to look over the next 7 days. And I want you to just notice what you have on your calendar. And ideally, you're putting everything on your calendar. You are putting on there, everything from your own self-care routines to your family time, to your work time, to all of it, right? It's all there. Errands, all the things. And when you look at that 7-day calendar, I want you to first and foremost edit the crap out of that calendar. So I have another episode where I talk about Martha Beck's 3 B's, she calls them: bag it, barter it, or better it. I'm not going to go into that in depth here, but it will be in the email. So you can make sure that you sign up at leahpinelli.com/goodies to get on that email list, or you can just go to my website and click the black bar at the top. But if you bag it, barter it, or better it, the idea is that you want to pare down your calendar so that there's nothing on your calendar that you don't want to do. Now, of course, there are things that I put on my calendar that I don't really want to do. Like, for example, preparing for the podcast. It's a lot of mental work for me, right? I don't love preparing for my podcast. I love recording them. I love talking to you all. I love it once they're out in the world. But the preparation part is like hurts my brain a little bit. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to do it, because what I want is I want to have a high quality podcast to deliver to you every week. So in order to do that, I got to sit down and I got to prepare the podcast, right? That part I don't love. So what I don't mean is I'm not saying make sure you love to do every single thing on your calendar. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is make sure you want to do every single thing on your calendar. A great example of that might be dishes. I don't want to do the dishes every night. I do want a clean kitchen, but I don't want to do the dishes every night. So what do? I bartered that with my husband. So my husband now is on it with the dishes every single night, and I have other family responsibilities that I take care of. So that is the idea of bag it, barter it. I just gave an example of barter. And then better it, which I'm going to be talking about in just a minute. Bagging it, by the way, is if you can just get rid of the task altogether. Like really ask yourself, do I really have to do this thing? Like, do I have to go to this? No, you don't have to do anything. Do I really want to go to this PTA meeting? Is anything terrible going to happen if I don't go to the PTA meeting? Do I really want to have this meeting with my assistant? Like maybe we can skip this meeting because everything could be covered in an email. So really just check in honestly with yourself and make sure that there is nothing on your calendar that you don't want to do for whatever the reason is. And remember, there's nothing, absolutely nothing you have to do, ever. I know that for some of us, if you're like me, I am super passionate about like everything. I'm really passionate about my business, about helping women stop overeating. I'm really passionate about being a present parent to my child. I love actually being on the PTA, and I'm actually really involved in the school board race. I'm not on the school board, but the school board election right now and local politics. And I'm passionate about a lot of these things. And so I'm also really passionate about lots and lots of exquisite self-care. So how do we roll this all together? How do you get this all on your calendar in a way that's actually sustainable so that you're not burning yourself out and you're not feeling like that, awesome Pilates class that you're excited to go to now feels like just one more thing to do? I'm going to tell you. So first, you streamline your calendar, like I said. Nothing you have to do, only the things you want to do. The second thing you're going to do is you are going to then own it. You're going to own that every single thing on your calendar is something that you want to do, and you want to do it for a reason that you like. So here's what I do. Because I'm so passionate, I've got so many things on my calendar. One, I am constantly editing my calendar. I am constantly editing to make sure that I am not kind of getting carried away and saying yes to things that I don't actually want to do. I have had to become very comfortable with disappointing people when I say no. I am totally okay with you being disappointed that I said no, because I own my time. I own it. And when I own it, guess how I feel? Empowered. That is also why, for me, less is more. I had to get really honest with myself about what my values are. And by the way, I edit my values all the time. In my journal, right now, the journal sitting next to me, I have 2 different lists of my values because I am constantly going through and reworking them and editing them to remind myself of what is most important to me so that I don't lose sight of it. And then what I do is I make sure that my values are represented on my calendar so that I can own it. So for me, moving my body in ways that feels like love is a non-negotiable. So I have plenty of time on my calendar to do that. Eating well is a non-negotiable. Sleep is a non-negotiable. My business schedule is a non-negotiable. Time with my kid. And by the way, I do volunteer in his classroom for 2 hours every week. And I go to the PTA meetings. But here's the thing. I'm not doing a lot of other things that maybe some of you are doing. And that's not to say that I'm doing it right and you're doing it wrong. It's to say what I'm doing is aligned with my values. And that is the number one most important thing. So you have to know what your values are so that you can really own what you're putting on your calendar. And then my favorite little tip is to compartmentalize my calendar. So Monday through Friday, I typically do not do anything that doesn't have something to do with work. So I work Monday through Friday. I exercise and take care of myself. And then in the evenings, that is my family time. But I am not doing any kind of volunteer work. I'm not usually going to social events. It is work and family, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, that is starting Friday night. That is when I move into non-working mommy and into my social community mode where I am out in the community. I'm making connections. This past weekend, I was canvassing for a school board candidate and spending lots and lots of time with my family. And I try to leave work. I don't try to leave work, but I mostly 99.9% of the time I leave work completely and really just focus on the weekends. But even today on my walk, I'm seeing these signs for school board candidates. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to send that one message to that one candidate. And then I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is a work day. You can make a note, and I do. I set a little reminder on my phone while I'm walking to make sure I reach out to her during my weekend, or maybe evening, but evening or weekend, and not during my work time. I'm very, very careful to compartmentalize so that my brain can rest and focus on one thing at a time. Focusing on one thing at a time is the key to not being overwhelmed. It is the key to being highly productive, both at work and at home. And that is what I know we all want here, because we are all CEOs of something. And finally, the third thing. So number 1 was streamlining your calendar. Number 2 is owning your time. And number 3 is Luxe it up. So this is where I implore you to please prioritize yourself on your calendar, to make time for yourself on your calendar. I know it sounds impossible sometimes, but look, we all have the same 156 hours in the week. Is it 156? I think it's 156. We all have the same 156 hours in our week. And we all have different circumstances that we are juggling. However, if you are truly streamlining it and then owning it, you will find and make time for luxing it up. And this is actually what I teach my clients in the 90 Days to Food Freedom program, which is the process for how you actually create what I call a flywheel. And your flywheel is actually your habits, your daily habits that are become habituated, so you don't have to think about them anymore. And they just become what you do. So for me in my life, that looks like walking my dog every day for most days an hour, going to Pilates 4 times a week, making beautiful, healthy meals, drinking exquisite good wine, sleeping really well, journaling and meditating multiple times a week, having alone time, having date nights. I know it sounds impossible, but the truth is if you are truly committed to streamlining and to owning it and to being highly efficient when you're doing both of those two things, you will have time to Luxe it up. You will have time to create the life that you crave. So one more time, ladies, head over to leahpinelli.com/goodies if you are not already on my email list so that I can send you the cheat sheet of everything that I just talked about. So you will have it in your inbox. It will be going out on October 18th. So go and get it while it's hot. Okay, ladies. And if you haven't already, Eating Without Fear, it is my free training that teaches you how to eat only when you're hungry and stop when you're not. And that is also at leahpinelli.com. So go get the free stuff and go clean up your CEO queendom and really own being the boss that you really are.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.